Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone SE 2nd generation and compare it against the iPhone SE 3rd generation and see which particular iPhone is the better one for you. Now, first things first, the big thing I can definitely tell you, in my personal opinion, is that when it comes down to both these devices, I genuinely do think that it doesn't really make a lot of sense to go ahead and buy either one of these phones. I think it makes a lot more sense to go and buy a completely different set of phones than this one, but we'll take a look at that throughout this whole entire video. First things first, if you want to go ahead and see some of the phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the iPhone SE 3rd and the iPhone SE 2nd generation. The iPhone SE 2, which came out back in 2020, was giving you on the front side a 4.7-inch Retina IPS panel. You were getting the home button on the front, the top bezel, the bottom bezel, all that stuff. And for a 2020 phone, this phone really wasn't that terrible, right? Apple just came off the heels of like the iPhone 8 Plus, which, came out in 2017. I think they were still selling it in 2018, then they stopped it in 2019. So this thing to come back in 2020, it really wasn't a terrible idea. We were expecting it maybe to look a little bit better, but even then for a 2020 phone, it really wasn't super outdated, which is kind of crazy to think about. But at least in my personal opinion, I wasn't really feeling like it was super bad. Fast forward to the 2022 iPhone SE 3, this phone was giving you a 4.7-inch Retina IPS panel on the front side of this phone, and this phone was very outdated by the time I bought it. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the difference here, right? Like the SE2 had the same design. Like why was that one not outdated, but the SE3 was? That 2-year span, we saw so many improvements within our iPhones. We saw the notch become smaller and smaller and smaller within our particular devices. We saw a lot of the landscape around these phones, the other budget phone manufacturers like the Pixels and the Samsung Galaxy A series. They not only were removing a bunch of bezel, but they were also increasing their refresh rates inside of their phones. There were like $300 phones with like 90 Hz or 120 Hz displays, which was really crazy. But the worst thing Apple did here was that they went from a $399 iPhone SE2 to a $429 iPhone SE3. There was no reason for that price increase. This body stayed exactly the same. So it's interesting, the SE2 wasn't super outdated when it came out, but the SE3 was outdated and overpriced by the time that phone officially came out. And they kept selling that phone for like 3 years in a row, which is crazy. So that phone was, I would always call it the worst phone you could buy, one of the worst iPhones that Apple's ever made, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to go and buy that type of phone. Both these phones are basically giving you lightning ports at the bottom, which is always nice to have, but USB Type-C is significantly better. On the back side, you're getting these glass backs on the back of both these phones, which, like I mentioned before, I love having glass backs, but frosted glass backs are much, much better. Single camera setups on the back side, you are getting wireless charging on the backside of both these phones too. So that is another really cool thing going on for these phones. But I kind of do feel like when I look at both these devices, right, both these phones are great. I like both of them, but they are very outdated designs. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to go and pick up either one of these types of phones when there are significantly better options out there. And from what I can tell you, it definitely does not make a lot of sense to go and buy either one of these phones. Price tag wise, they're both a little bit interesting too. Like the iPhone SE2 is going to be cheaper than the SE3, but I will probably still tell you that when it comes down to both these phones, the iPhone SE2 is still a good phone, it still performs well and everything, but the SE3 is going to be the one that's going to be a little bit more expensive. Apple just stopped selling it for like not even a couple weeks ago. So that is in and of itself another really interesting thing that's kind of coming down to it from that side. And when it comes down to the cameras, these things were basically giving you single cameras inside of both of them. So they're 12 megapixel wide angle lenses on the backside, and they're basically the same type of camera on the front side as well. So you're basically getting, 4K at 60 on the back, which is great, but you're only getting 1080p on the front side. For a phone in 2025, I'm going to be honest, that is a very outdated type of resolution to have both on the front. On the back, it's okay. 4K 60 is kind of what you'd expect, but you'd expect these phones to be giving you a little bit of a better experience when it comes down to it. And like I said before, if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, that is a very, very outdated type of layout to have inside of a device when it comes down to it. Like, I'm going to be honest, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to go and buy this type of phone, especially from a camera perspective, because the cameras, like I said before, are already a little bit outdated by the time you buy it. So especially from that side, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to go and buy it either. So in my personal opinion, when it kind of comes down to those sides, definitely something like the iPhone, SE 2 or 3, they're both about the same thing. And you're really just looking at like little tiny differences when it comes down to it from that side. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. Now, from software longevity perspective, this is also another really interesting thing going on here too. In my personal opinion, if you're kind of comparing these two phones, from what I can tell you, these two phones are great. You're going to be getting a really good experience, but the iPhone SE3 is definitely going to be the one that's going to be giving you a longer lasting phone here. To give you some perspective, the iPhone 11 is going to be giving you roughly around the same type of performance as something like an iPhone 11. So the software longevity is going to be roughly like an iPhone 11, where the iPhone SE3 is going to be more like an iPhone 13. So if you're trying to get the phone that's going to be giving you a better experience here, it's probably going to end up being the one that's like on the iPhone 13 from this particular perspective than the iPhone 11. So if you're wanting the longer lasting one here, it's probably going to be the iPhone SE3. On top of that, from Apple's own website, they do actually state that the iPhone SE second generation is going to be giving you about 13 hours of video playback, but the iPhone SE3 is going to be giving you about 15 hours of video playback. So from what I can see, you're probably going to be getting somewhat roughly, I would say, around better battery life on the iPhone SE3, but from my own test, I never really found it to be like that big of a difference. It was a slight difference here and there, but it wasn't really like this big insane thing as far as I could tell. So that's also kind of one of those things to keep in mind there as well. On top of that, when it comes down to the actual performance here, the iPhone SE3 was giving you the Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it, where the iPhone SE2 was giving you the Apple A13 Bionic chip inside. So from this side as well, this is going to be something that's going to be very interesting, because in my personal opinion, you're definitely going to be getting a phone on both that's going to be great. You're going to be getting a really good performance. Is not really going to be, my biggest complaints of these two phones isn't really the performance. It's really everything else. The performance of these phones were really good at their time. Even the iPhone SE3. The SE3, because it's matching in line with something like an iPhone 13, you're going to be getting a pretty good experience within that type of phone. It's going to be very fast, it's going to be very capable, and I do think if you are going to go through and buy a phone, this is a good performing iPhone. But even now it's shown its age a little bit because it's a little bit older now, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to go and buy this phone anymore either. I still feel like in the used market, you can probably buy an iPhone 13 for the same price as an iPhone SE2. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper, but it's going to be roughly around the same. It just makes more sense to go and buy something like an iPhone 13 at that point. And that's just the kind of the way I see this particular phone. Like, I think the iPhone SE3 does a good job here and there, and it does a good job even with the SE2, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to buy this phone because there are significantly better options out there. I look at a phone like an iPhone SE3, and I feel like this type of phone would be the one that could be better, but it's not better, right? That phone I also would not recommend buying, and neither would I recommend buying the iPhone SE2. I would recommend buying a phone like an iPhone 13. I think that phone would definitely be better to buy than this one, especially an iPhone 13 Pro. Those phones would be very solid options to go and buy rather than this one, including the iPhone 14, 14 Pros, even an iPhone 12 I probably would recommend more so than the iPhone SE2 or the 3, to be honest. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.